topics and opinions expressed in the following show are solely those of the host and their guests and not those of W4CY Radio, its employees, or affiliates. We make no recommendations or endorsements for radio show programs, services, or products mentioned on air or on our web. No liability, explicit or implied, shall be extended to W4CY Radio or its employees or affiliates. Any questions or comments should be directed to those show hosts. Thank you for choosing W4CY Radio.
Hi, this is Shelby Wagner, hostess of Learning to Dance in the Rain, your listening app for learning to deal with your problems and hopefully bounce back from them. And we're developing resilience together. I am the author of the award-winning book, Learning to Dance in the Rain, Surviving Grief, Internet Dating, and Romance Scams. And I'm also the author of the second book, Scams, a Resource Guide. Both of these were written to help people know about the terrible problems that we're having today with the scams, and so they know how to resist them, what to do if they've been scammed, who to let know, and so on. And we are here tonight to welcome Keenan Booker from Las Vegas, Nevada. And he's the author of, I'm going to tell you the title of his books in just a minute, because I wanted to read to you that he was born in Chicago, Illinois. And he's lived all over all over the world, all over the States, whatever. And he's been a student of anthology, world history, psychology. Well, I'm just going to let him tell himself. But I'm very intrigued with the title of his books. He's got a 3-volume set called Getting Kicked Out of Heaven, from the period of 700 to 1700, 3 volumes. And they're available on his website, kickedoutofheaven.com. Are they available on Amazon? You'll have to tell us, Keenan. Come on out and let's welcome Keenan Booker. Hi, how are you?
Hey, how you doing? Thanks for having me. Yes, they are available on Amazon as well.
Okay.
But if you really want the ones with the color, because all 3 volumes have over 1,000 photos in it to verify the information that's being stated. And when you purchase them directly from my website, they come in color. Here they are. These are the big books right here. Okay. And they're titled Kicked Out of Heaven because essentially we are on earth, which is not in heaven. So there's a little relation for you. I don't want people to get too offended by the title. That's done for marketing purposes, of course. But yeah.
Very good. When I went on Amazon to check out your Kicked Out of Heaven set, I saw the first one I saw was an encyclopedia on the what was it? Anthology of Women.
Yeah, encyclopedia on the alchemy of women. Okay, yeah, this one is really a big one. So yeah,
maybe we can talk a little bit about that too. But I'm gonna let
we can get into that. As you can see, these are big books. They're multi-volume books, so there's a lot of literature and a lot to go over. I try to cover a subject in its totality because I understand that's definitely not what academia does for us. They give us what the professors feel is the updated or what's part of the curriculum, which is also supporting the propaganda or agenda that they want society to think in. Okay, as we're seeing a lot of these issues with the whole gender complication that's going on inside universities first, before it spills to society. So we have to understand that when it comes to socialism, there's a lot of propaganda and agenda guided information that comes through the universities. From what source, we don't know. The presidents or the vice presidents that are at the top of that university. are the ones that are directing it. So with that, we definitely understand that the information is incorrect, because as you been on this earth a little bit longer than me, you know that this isn't the information that was being supported in the 1980s. There was no talk of a gender difference during the 1980s inside of any university. So with that being a new thing, we definitely understand that there's a propaganda behind it. So that lets us know that you're not giving us the reality of, or the totality of a subject as if we would like to know.
Today, it's really hard to know what is the truth and what is not truth.
Right, exactly.
I mean, I got 3 notices on my email today thanking me for renewing my subscription to, one was Norton, or the tech thing, security. Another one was WebRoot. I think I belonged to that about 20 years ago. And all of them were $489. I thought, well, who is this? What is this?
Right.
It's been a long time ago. I haven't been, subscribing to those, but it's lucky that I was smart enough to remember, hey, I don't have a subscription to that. How can you renew it?
Right.
But what got you interested in all this?
Well, I wrote my first book, which is called The Black Man's Bible, this one right here. And it's a memoir about my life, and it's fused with a lot of other sciences and information that I've encountered. As you can see, the book's behind me.
Yeah.
I read a lot of material, and the material that I read may be considered outdated, 1700s, 1800s, so on and so forth. So I've read a lot of history. And then when I was on the course to write my second book, which was specifically going to be about torture, just a 75-page book, and the reason that I was going to write that is because I don't like horror movies. I think horror movies are very disrespectful. I think they're very unnecessary. So, but due to how I look at things, I could definitely tell that they're getting this information from somewhere, especially when we look at movies like Saw and The Mechanics and things of that nature. And then, we've all been predisposed to executioners and things of that nature in cartoons, Walt Disney cartoons, and and in other movies. So I said, let's go down this road and see what it is. And when I went down that road, I found a little bit of information, but it wasn't fulfilling. I've read a couple of books on the subject, but obviously there was books on the subject already, so the field was already fulfilled. So I didn't feel complete with that. So I was just, a voice popped in my head and said, hey, go for everything. So I went for everything during the course of, when there was executioners, and that was in medieval Europe. And medieval is a time period. Medieval is not a word or a thing that is directly connected to Europe. There's a medieval Ethiopia, there's a medieval China, there's a medieval Japan. So medieval is a time period where things on this planet was very rough in all areas, but Europe was the roughest of the roughest, shall we say, if we could put it like that. And I went down that road. I found a lot of information. I had to put it together. A lot of the information was definitely the route to America, okay? And definitely the root material that Walt Disney operated off of, and also Hollywood. So a lot of the things that I was finding was just like ripping my mind, And I said, okay, well, this is important for us to know so we can navigate success and procedure, navigate growth inside the guise of what Americanism is, which Americanism was born out of medieval times, hence the Pilgrims and the Mayflower, okay, that came to America supposedly 1700s, even though there was activity in America dealing with the Europeans and the whole African slave trade during the 1500s, 1600s. So, but America was established until 1776. There was a lot of things with the colonies that were being chartered in America. So I wanted to know what the details were, and I found them. and they were available. I found them, and I wanted to put it in together in a format to let people know civilization has been here. This is not a new thing. For instance, I discovered that uh, the first banks were in Italy in the 1300s. So banking is a new system, is a new thing for my culture. But European culture had been dealing with banks and courts and lawyers and life insurance and these things back in the 1500s, 1600s.
Really?
It's a new introduction to us. So I wanted to understand how to navigate that. So I felt it was, a lot of people wanted to know this or needed this information and didn't know that they needed this information. So let me monetize my time while I'm studying all this information, put it all together. Voila, the books came out. Okay. Yeah.
So, why should we read about the medieval age or the Middle Ages? What do
Well,
we basically learn from them? Things that
Well, I
happen
mean,
with
for
that.
instance, my name is Keenan Booker. Keenan is Irish for ancient, and Booker is Anglo-Saxon for bookmaker. Your last name is your occupational name.
Uh-huh.
These are some of the small things that you'll learn in this literature, but also things pertaining to, like I stated, the root material of Hollywood and where the quote unquote concept of horror comes from, and also what the nature and spirit of it is. So, the nature and spirit of a lot of things were discovered inside while I did this research. For instance, a perfume is called Eau de Toilette, right? So,
Mm-hmm.
right, and perfume being Eau de Toilette which is a French word, comes from the smelling of the toilet because the atmosphere was so putrid. Okay. Okay. And that is also where we get a phrase like throwing the baby out with the bathwater. That
Uh-huh.
comes from the bathing practices that were going on in old Europe of bathing in a big wood tub. And then the baby would be the last one to be washed out of after the whole family
Oh,
was washed.
wow.
And then they would and then sometimes they would dump out the water and the baby would be inside that water. So that
Oh,
was the euphemism that we use today. Feed them with a
oh,
long-handled spoon is another euphemism that comes from the plague time period. So
really?
oh yeah, to feed them with
Oh,
I'm safe to say that maybe about 50 to 60% of the language that we use and the context of it
mm-hmm.
comes from plague experiences. So it was basically a roadmap for how to operate inside America without coming into conflict with court systems or the police, or understanding the true nature of a landlord, understanding the true nature of a cook or a restaurant or a brothel, or all of these things stem from Europe, you know? Yeah.
So, one of the first questions I asked you was, so how does this all relate to my show uh, about love and relationships and grieving and
Okay.
whatever? So let's go
Let-
talk about that love. What was that
right.
first
Let's talk
question?
about love. So, well, like I said, the spirit and nature of things. So, love is obviously a new concept when you understand chronological history of humans. Um, before I'd say 1850, roughly, we didn't have a true reliance upon love. Our mating system or courting system was based upon dowry. It was based upon a purchase of the woman. Basically, the dowry was paid from the woman's family to the man's family, and that's because women were the ones who bear the burden, which is the child. So for a man, that would automatically be work. Okay. And if we were to go before that time period, women were traded for cows. Okay. And this would also be the root source of money. And you can still see African tribes operating in that same format still to this day, where they'll trade a woman or trade daughters for cows. Okay. Now,
Wow. As
right. So
property, their property, right?
right, for property purposes.
Uh-huh,
Now,
uh-huh.
in today's context where we don't have those systems anymore and we have a reliance upon love, this love was actually built and designed romantically, hence the word romance, Rome, okay, after Rome, specifically because there's a system with Rome, with the war, with the soldiers and the soldiers going out to war and their wives and things of that nature, but we're not going to get into that. When it comes to the medieval and the founding of what love was, those experiences really stem from the plague, okay, and the plague, it gives us a very extreme system of survival and having to survive, and love is the basis. Love is the unification in between male and female for survival purposes, because as the plague is similar to weather conditions, which are sporadic, which could occur at any given moment, you needed somebody to rely upon, okay, and during these times there wasn't a lot of cell phones, we didn't have technology, there
Mhm,
wasn't a lot of traveling. So that one person that you met that obviously, quote unquote, popped your cherry, right? Or broke your virginity, you stayed in unison with that person. And you were able to stay in unison because they were in your neighboring village or a part of your village or was living in the castle region and whatnot. And you could communicate with them and you could stay you focused with that one person, and everybody else was an impending threat, okay, and this is how the it worked. This is also similar to a lot of the experiences during the status of slavery here in America, okay, there, or even during the wartime period in which a female would be sitting and waiting for her husband's letter or her boyfriend's letter while he was out at war. You
mhm,
know, it was a survival thing. We needed each other. There was only you that I could rely on. You made me feel beautiful from the inside out because of the sexual union, and I don't want anybody else in that picture. And that is the concept and where the origins of love came from. And that's what we had until today. Today, we've overproduced. We don't have a lot of, I mean, we do have too many conveniences, is what I mean to say. So we've overproduced, there's too many conveniences, and now everybody is disposable. I don't need you anymore because I have options, and sex has been over glorified through a lot of different mechanisms, whether it be cartoons, indirectly and subconsciously, whether it
mhm,
be movies, whether it be porn viewing, or whatever the case. Sex has been over glorified and it's not a special thing anymore. It's not a inquisitive things. You know, you wanted to know what your woman looked like or what she smelled like or what she tastes like, and vice versa. You see what I'm saying? So that's where the concept of love came from. It came from struggle, and due to the fact we have impending threats coming from society, coming from the weather, coming from criminals, coming from animals, you know, being attacked while you're out picking berries. A
mhm,
wolf could come by and try to attack you. You know, you hope that your lover was there with you to fend them off.
uh-huh,
So love has been genetically designed in our DNA over the course of maybe about 200, 300 years space for us to be unified one on one. Now there's a battle in between monogamy or polygamy, but we're going to stick with the monogamous picture, right?
mhm,
And it's just one on one. I love you. We're supposed to, you know, carry this out until the casket, and that's how mortgages were originally designed in the 1930s and 40s. That's why it's a 30-year contract. You know, it's because you're supposed to be with your mate in that one house for that long, right? And
mhm.
yeah, so that is the nature of love, is for our survival purposes, you know.
I just learned something the other day about certain cultures, even today, where the women are not allowed to own property, and so when they become widowed, their property is given away to the next what brother or uncle or rather in the line of the male rather than the woman, and I was kind of horrified to hear that. I mean, all of a sudden, if your husband dies, then where are you? What's left for you?
Well, yeah, that's the way it was conducted across the whole entire planet. If you want to
Yeah, that's
go
what I
into
was
the time
hearing.
period, right? If you want to go into before 1850, that was law in every culture. So, in the medieval times, exclusively, what they would do is they would marry her off to the brother, or she would have to marry a vagabond that was inside the society, or there was a space in some countries where you were allowed to be a widow for the span of maybe 5 years, but after that 5 year period of mourning, and you had to wear a specific type of clothing to show that you were in the status of mourning, which would be like the wedding attire but in black. And that's where they had the black cloak over the face. This was
Hmm.
the black cloak before the Islamic hijab they wear currently. It was similar to that, but it was also over the eyes. In the medieval times, it was called the veil. Okay, and yeah, you would be married off, and the reason why is because you're going to be in need, and your need, you won't be able to handle yourself. For instance, if you need your gutters cleaned, or if you needed to have your bushes hemmed, or your grass cut, or there's a lot of physical demanding things that occur, and you're going to end up leaning on some male in society for that. And then obviously there's also a genetic code where women feel as if a male is doing something for them specifically repetitively, she's going to fall into a space of feeling as if she owes him, and she owes him. And those times when there wasn't a big monetary system, it would fall into a physical space of enjoyment. She would, give her wares to suffice payment for whatever he did. And because that is a genetic code, women will still do and operate like that today. So
Maybe that explains why some women have trouble letting a man help them with
right,
certain, because you think, what are they going to want in return? Do you think
right,
maybe?
right, right.
Uh,
Especially today, because a lot of females are in defense of that. But
mhm.
in yesteryear, they understood that this was a part of it. There wasn't a big taboo behind the
Or
sexual picture.
or
Right.
even the women were used to the whole thing then, not just the men. The,
Right, right, right,
the
right. Women were more
infidelity and that
conditioned
kind of
to
stuff.
the fact
Okay.
that, because at the end of the day, we all are still animal. Okay, and a lot of we haven't been educated in this format in our modern standpoint, but we are all still animal. We still have animal desires, and we still operate in some of our functions in animalistic nature. So that's where women will fall into that space. Something has been done for me, you know um I will have to give this man some form of enjoyment because I don't have anything monetarily to give him.
Uh-huh.
And she would do so, and there was no problem with it. There was no taboo. There was no name calling because of this. There was no shame that was developed behind this type of act. Today there is, because women have been given this propagandized armor of no, and sex has been weaponized for women to utilize.
Hmm. Hmm. Very interesting. Very interesting. What well, we were what how about Valentine's Day?
Oh,
Was there Valentine's Day back in the, or Sweetest Day?
yeah, there was Valentine's Day. Okay, of course they call it Saint Valentine's Day. So there is a saint. He was killed in Rome and beheaded.
Okay.
But the information that is stated in volume 3, because I have a whole section on Saint Valentine's Day, and I have a section on Saint Patrick's Day, which just passed,
Oh.
inside volume 3. And there is no correlation supposedly behind the two different saints that were beheaded in Rome, and the origins of Saint Valentine's Day. But I did find information stating that on Saint Valentine's Day is when birds usually choose their mate. Okay. And it did begin in the system of uh, turning in notes they would send letters stating what mate that they wanted to the local newspaper, and the local newspaper would publish it, and then you would go to that person and get married. Or sometimes even in early in the morning, the first person that you passed of opposite sex would end up being your husband or your wife. There wasn't right there, and they would just run to each other and make it happen, because it is better to be in unison than to be alone. But in this time period, it's better to be alone than in unison, I guess. I don't know. There's a lot of drama behind that. So um what would happen is they had to understand there wasn't a lot inside in society that blocked us from each other. Okay. So today we have cell phones, we have apps, we have, you know, we have bills, we have insurances, we have children, we have schools, we have jobs. But there's a ton of things that are in the way to block a true energy, and also prior traumas from childhood, traumas from a prior relationship, a lot of psychological issues that will block your desire to being in a relationship, and also the need for being in a relationship. Back in the yesteryear, they would just make it happen, you know, and like I said earlier, before 1850, you were just purchased, and it happened. We forced it. We forced the square into a circle, and you're going to be happy. Happy wasn't really a concept yet. You know, we had to work every day. We had to chase headless chickens around. We had to skin deers. We had to, we had to do a lot of things, and women didn't have a problem with working. That was a part of the situation, just like all species of female on this planet, whether you're a female hawk, eagle, seal, shark, deer, it didn't matter. You did work. You worked with your mate for the elements of survival. And today, we feel as if the women have been educated or propagandized that they feel as if they don't need to do that. They can be a pretty princess and just, sit on the sideline and shop all day off of the man's work. She doesn't have to do any work with the male. And she's the only female on this planet that has created this false narrative that she doesn't have to work with her mate.
I had a thought there. That explains something that my mother told me, that my dad's sister, let's see, her third child was a son, and he's the same age as I am. She had two daughters before that. And so when I was just one or two, three, something in there, and her child, it was still a baby, my mom and I and my aunt and those three kids went down on the train from Michigan back down to Missouri, where my dad's family was from. And my aunt had the idea that she was leaving her husband because he was an alcoholic. He was drunk most of the time. And whatever, I don't know all the other conditions, but he was still that way when I grew up, and I knew that. But anyway, my grandmother said, well, you made your bed. You got to lay in it, and send her back to Michigan. So they did go back to Michigan, and my aunt had another 6 or 7 kids after that. She had a total of nine or 10 kids. And I thought, and when I grew up, every time we would go to visit, which was quite often, my dad, thought family was very important and wanted us kids to know each other. And I don't remember seeing my uncle maybe once or twice in all of those years, because he was always sleeping the drunk off in the bedroom. And
but
I thought,
together.
Right. At the time, I thought, wow, was that ever mean of my grandmother to say that and send her back? But, she had, I think, 6 living kids, because she had a couple that had died, and they were all working in the cotton fields. They were sharecroppers. in Missouri and poor. And even my grandmother worked out in the fields. And the daughters were the ones that cleaned house and cooked the meals and that, so everybody had a job. And maybe there was another now 4 mouths to feed.
Mhm.
So that would have, that was way back in the early 40s. So, wow. Would that,
Yeah.
I wonder if that would happen today too, maybe in some cases, if there was still that lingering.
Well, see, well, look at what you stated.
You made
The
your
you
bed, so lie in it.
right, right. Well, yeah. You made a decision. Stick with your decision that you made. That's
Mm-hmm,
one thing that we don't have to do today because of all these options. Hop on the train, hop on the plane, disappear, change your name. And
mm-hmm,
you can do all of this, these dark arts, basically, to run away from your responsibilities. So, as you stated, the unification in between all the children, the uncle, the father, the mother, was the workload. You see that? You said they were all in a cotton field, correct? Okay, they all had a big house. They all had to maintain the house. They had to keep the house clean. They had to keep the work from the field going. Okay,
mm-hmm,
and that work is what allowed the family unison at the same time. Okay,
mm-hmm,
they weren't all getting in cars and going to a McDonald's over here, going to a Target over here, going to a this over here, going to a that over there. They were
mm-hmm,
all in the same field, doing the same thing, was sleeping in the same house, and I mean, of course, you had your shindigs with the whole neighborhood where there is other people from other areas of the same field that y'all got together and had your holiday celebrations and whatnot. But at the end of the day, you knew who you were dealing with, and families knew other families,
mm-hmm.
and families were able to inspect other families before they said, okay, your son is good for my daughter, maybe we should try to force them together, blah blah blah. So you see that those were the ways of the old world that kept us a lot more quote unquote pure, I guess, because nowadays if a female has 9 to 10 kids, you best believe there's 4 to 5 different, maybe even 11 different
Yeah,
fathers in the mix.
I've met a few like that. My mother was so and so. A friend of mine said, "Yeah, my mother was married 5 times and had 5 kids, and they were all a different father." And
Yeah,
I thought, "Wow, what
yeah.
was her life like growing up?" I can't imagine. But anyway, did
Mhm.
you answer this question when we talked about love? What is your definition of love overall?
Oh well, yeah. I just explained that
You kind of
with
hit on it there. I don't remember.
yeah. Well, the definition is the unification for survival. That's it.
Oh, that's
Yeah.
why. Okay. So it wasn't
Mhm.
a feeling of attraction, or what about the
Oh well, I mean,
biblical?
attraction is there. Tolerance is a big word that you want to
Ah,
use dealing with love.
okay.
Understanding that there is no perfection, and you know, to be short and sweet with it, love is blind. And what that means is that you're going to discover things that you don't like about your mate. And guess what? If you're really in love with them, you're going to be blind to the flaws. Okay. You may not like your mate's mother, your mate's father, your mate's brother or sister. You may not like your mate's past. You may not like your mate's occupation, their job. But you will have, if you truly love that person, you're going to have to blind yourself to those flaws. Okay. And
Right.
understand. Go ahead.
No, that's okay. I didn't mean to interrupt.
Oh
My
no.
my
But
pastor
blind
and
your,
I have been talking about love, but we're almost out of time.
oh,
Uh,
okay.
would you like to come back sometime so we can continue our
Yeah,
conversation?
anytime. Anytime I'm available. Yeah,
Okay,
we can
well,
still.
we'll take a look at that. I just want to draw an end here. I want to thank Keenan for coming. I was very interested in this. Of course, I've always been interested in history. I don't know
Yeah.
about those medieval ages. I'm really glad I didn't live back then. But our next week, we're going to be having an investigator um, come and talk to us about unsolved crime, unsolved murders, scams, and wrongful convictions. I think that would be an awful hard thing to have to go through if you were found guilty of something that you didn't do. So I'm going to, I think, Rebel, are we about finished? I've lost track of time here. About 3 minutes. Okay. So as I said again, I hope you'll check out our books, Keenan's books in Amazon and on his website. My books are on Amazon also, Learning to Dance in the Rain, Surviving Grief, Internet Dating, and Romance Scams. And boy, I tell you, the ultimate tool you need is the book on scams, because it defines 150 of them. And there are more than 1,000 out there. So bye. I'm going to say goodbye, and bye, Keenan. And thanks again for coming. And I'll see you next week. And I want to hear about that alchemy of women. Okay. I want to hear about the alchemy of women.
The alchemy of women. We'll get to it. You just call me up. I'll be here.
Okay. Bye now.
Bye-bye.